tonight's post is going to be very raw, maybe the most raw that I've ever made. I am heartbroken tonight, and rather than just keep it inside, I feel like I should just let it out. So, dating as a single mom is hard. Like, it's really, really freaking hard. And I have been dating somebody that I have been on and off with for years, and like this time I thought it, and they couldn't handle my child. And so I said to this person, if you can't handle him, then we're wasting our time. And that was the last I've heard. And I totally understand that, like, not everybody is capable of the same thing. And not everybody wants to be a parent. Not everybody wants to be a step parent. But when you see a woman with children and you don't want to be part of that and you don't want to sacrifice, stay the hell away.
Well, looks like that's exactly what he did. And, I can't say that I feel bad for. Is that bad that I don't feel bad for? Well, one of the reasons that I don't feel bad for is because you have to deal with the consequences of whatever your actions are. Now, let me preface this by saying that I am not familiar with her background. You guys sent me the video, and so this is what I'm reacting to. I don't know how she got divorced. I'm sure that story will be somewhere around, right? We'll get to that. Maybe I'll do a little bit more exploring. But more importantly, when she gave the ultimatum, because you got to understand that a lot of people are just casually dating, right? You can't determine what somebody else can and can't do. All you can do is set the boundaries and the parameters, and then whatever it is that they decide to do as a result of it, then you got to roll with the consequences. I would say that she should respect him even more because he didn't play games and he decided that he wanted to go in a separate direction instead of being a step crash dummy. And you know me, I am never going to advocate for men to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. I would never advocate for a man to finish another man's save game. I often refer to these guys as step crash dummies. I believe that people should go back with the father or the mother of their children, and don't ever hit me with the because I did read in the description or in her comments that the kid was 6 years old. Don't hit me, well, we just not compatible. You got to do what you got to do for better or worse for the kids. It just is what it is. It's not somebody else's responsibility to meet your expectations. It's up to you to deal with whatever the consequences are of your actions. And so, if you chose wrong, right? Because there's a couple different paths that you can take from this. If you decided to have a child out of wedlock, then that's the ultimate red flag, in my opinion, because it just shows that you was never responsible in the first place. And you can't start to raise your standards now that you have a child because the best parts of you have already been extended over to somebody else. And you can say, well, she can have another kid with you, but that person still should and does have access to her for the rest of her life through the child. And that's why historically, the person that you married was basically the person that you had sex with. Sex was defined by the hymen being broken by the woman, which is ultimately her womb being the most valuable part of her, and one of the ways in which you knew that she was a virgin, which made her more valuable in the eyes of the people that was basically trying to marry her, right? And often at times we have to understand that you can't change the rules of the game because you feel like it. And just because you post a crying video on the internet doesn't mean that we should have any more compassion, because we've seen this story 1,000 times. Marry before you carry. When you marry before you carry, you're much more likely to have vetted the person that you decided to have children with, and you're much more likely to see it through. Now, I know that the divorce rate is what it is. It's somewhere around 50%. I believe that when men marry men, it's much lower, and when women marry women, is much higher. But you have a greater chance because you've went through the vetting process. When you get married, heterosexual, that's the only thing I'm advocating for. I don't believe in none of that other nonsense that y'all got going on. When you marry, then you have a greater chance of vetting the person. And if a woman is willing to get with a guy that then gives his last name to her, and I'm not talking about a partnership, I'm talking about a traditional marriage, you're much more likely to raise those children in a successful household. Now, how y'all manage through that, you got to actually want to make it work at least up until the child is old enough to drive and graduate from high school, and then they have a true understanding of what life is like, and they have a greater success rate, right? They have a greater path, less likely to go to jail, more likely to go to college, less likely to have debt, less likely to have trauma and problems and issues and troubles and joining gangs and all of that stuff, right? Um, but the person that you had a child with, that's your husband. That is your husband. So you can't remix it and switch it around. I don't see anything that the guy did wrong based off of this, 1 minute and 22-second video that she posted. I don't see anything that the guy did wrong. She set the tone. When people first get together, nobody vets and says, "Hey, do you got a kid?" "Oh, I still want to be that baby pappy." No, you just chilling and hanging around, and y'all might go out. I'm pretty sure that she's given herself to him and busted down for a real one. Otherwise, I highly doubt that she would be bawling tears and feeling a way about them breaking up if she wasn't busting it down for a real one. Clearly, he probably didn't have children, and I think that it's also selfish on her part. I think that it's selfish on her part. Anton, why do you think it's selfish? Because why would she ruin his life by having him marry her or get with her or continue to pursue her, knowing that she has a young child at home? Is no way, she's not as good, is like the best option for him. But that's the way women think. I think also a lot of times is that they'll move selfishly, whereas men know what they qualify for. And a lot of times, especially if you're a good dude, you will just be like, you know what? I get it. I understand we had a thing, but it's not necessarily forever. Everybody is not supposed to be with everybody forever. Everybody, some people got a season and some people got to move on. They get it. They understand. You know what I'm saying? And if they don't understand, at the very least, they'll try their hardest to, at least really put in the effort to make the thing work. That's why you see women file for divorce the majority of the time. Women will take their raggedy behinds and they negative disposition and they bad situation, and they will launch it into a whole nother stratosphere to try to get with a guy that's too good for them. And then they'll jump on the internet and try to make it seem like, see, you ain't got to lower your standards. See, you can still be a baby mama and find a good man. It's not about finding a good man. It's about finding your person, finding the person that you're equally yoked with. And that's why, I just by default don't necessarily trust most women, because I don't think that they'll do the thing that's in your best interest. If they'll put themselves in a position to get with you with another man's child, knowing that they got a co-parent, and especially if you're a man without children, and they're still willing to marry you, then they don't have your best interest at heart. I know that that's crazy. I know that that sounds controversial, but it's the reality. Like, why would you put me in a negative space and have me having to, kind of be the weird one in this situation where you're gonna be going back and forth with your baby daddy? It's just bad. It's a messy situation. It's all bad, and it's nothing that you can tell me that makes sense, or that you can convince me of that that's a good situation for the child, and that's a good situation for the man. Nothing you could tell me about at all. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Henley 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm definitely going to link back to the content creator. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.